Join us on Patreon and become part of our journey to uncover history's untold stories. Your support helps us create in-depth content, bring hidden narratives to life, and keep history alive for everyone.
History often begins with a story, and the story of the Filipino people is far older and more intricate than most realize. While mainstream history books often begin the tale of the Philippines with Spanish colonization or the arrival of Malay settlers, there is a deeper, more ancient narrative that pulses beneath the surface. It is the story of the Aeta, the original inhabitants of the Philippine archipelago. These people, with their dark skin, curly hair, and deep connection to the land, are the living testament to the fact that the first Filipinos were black. The story of the Aeta people challenges the conventional ideas of Filipino identity. Their presence on the islands predates recorded history, predates the waves of Austronesian migration, and speaks at a time when the islands were first touched by human footprints. To truly understand the history of the Philippines is to acknowledge the central place of the Aeta and other Negrito groups in its origins. However, due to colonial erasure, modern racial ideologies, and the marginalization of indigenous voices, the history of these original peoples has been pushed to the margins, dismissed, or altogether forgotten. In this historical journey, we will delve into who the Aeta are, where they came from, how they shaped the cultural and genetic makeup of the Philippines, and why their history has been hidden or denied. We will examine the archaeological, genetic, and anthropological evidence that places the Aeta at the center of the Philippines' ancient past, and explore how colonial narratives distorted the truth. In reclaiming their story, we also reclaim a fuller, more truthful understanding of what it means to be Filipino. The Aeta, along with other Negrito groups in the Philippines such as the Agta and Ati, are considered to be among the earliest human inhabitants of Southeast Asia. Genetic and archaeological evidence places their ancestors in the region as far back as 40,000 to 50,000 years ago. These early humans are believed to have traveled from mainland Asia through land bridges and shallow seas that existed during the last ice age, making their way into what are now the islands of the Philippines. These people are part of a broader group known to anthropologists as Austronesians, who also populated regions like Papua New Guinea, Australia, and parts of Southeast Asia. Their physical features, dark skin, woolly hair, and short stature, have often been used to classify them as Negritos, a Spanish term meaning little black people. While this term has been criticized for its colonial connotations, it is still commonly used in academic circles to refer to these indigenous groups. The Aeta were not merely passive inhabitants of these islands. They were skilled hunter-gatherers, herbalists, and spiritual practitioners who developed rich oral traditions and deep knowledge of their environment. They moved across the land according to the seasons, maintaining a symbiotic relationship with nature that allowed them to thrive for tens of thousands of years. Their languages, though now endangered, reveal complex linguistic structures and connections to other Austroasiatic and Austronesian languages, indicating centuries of cultural exchange and adaptation. Recent advances in genetic research have further confirmed the ancient presence of the Aeta in the Philippines. Studies published in prestigious journals like Nature and Science have shown that Negrito groups in the Philippines possess unique genetic markers that are not found in later Austronesian populations. These markers link them to the first modern humans who left Africa and settled across southern Asia. One of the most groundbreaking studies was conducted by the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, which sequenced the genomes of several Negrito populations in the Philippines. The results showed that the Aeta and similar groups share ancient ancestry with the Aboriginal Australians and Papuans, but also have unique genetic adaptations to the tropical forests of the Philippines. This indicates that they have been evolving in the region for tens of thousands of years, long before the arrival of Austronesian-speaking peoples. This genetic evidence challenges the idea that modern Filipinos are primarily descended from Malay or Austronesian settlers. Instead, it suggests that the original inhabitants of the islands were dark-skinned, curly-haired black people who formed the foundational layer of the Filipino gene pool. While intermarriage and cultural blending have since occurred, the roots remain deeply embedded in the Aeta and other Negrito peoples. Despite their ancient roots, the Aeta have been largely excluded from modern conceptions of Filipino identity. This erasure began with the arrival of Spanish colonizers in the 16th century. The Spaniards, following a Eurocentric worldview, considered the Aeta and other dark-skinned peoples to be uncivilized and inferior. They categorized them as savages who lived in the mountains and refused to submit to Spanish rule. The colonial authorities promoted the idea that true civilization in the Philippines began with Spanish colonization and Catholic conversion. The Aeta, who resisted both, were thus written out of the official history. Their stories were ignored in favor of narratives that celebrated mestizo and lowland Christian identities. Even after the end of Spanish rule, American colonization continued this marginalization. U.S. anthropologists documented the Aeta but often portrayed them as relics of a bygone era, destined to disappear. The creation of a unified Filipino national identity in the 20th century further sidelined the Aeta. National heroes were often light-skinned, educated in Western schools, and steeped in Spanish or American cultural norms. The image of the Aeta did not fit this mold and was therefore omitted from school textbooks, media representations, and political discourse. Their contributions to the culture, genetics, and history of the Philippines were buried under layers of colonial ideology and nationalistic reinvention. Though marginalized, the Aeta have had a profound impact on Filipino culture. Many of their agricultural techniques, herbal medicines, and musical traditions have been adopted by neighboring communities. Words from their languages have filtered into Tagalog and other Filipino languages. Their spiritual beliefs, which emphasize harmony with nature and ancestral reverence, share similarities with pre-colonial Filipino animism and continue to influence folk practices today. However, in modern times, the Aeta face significant challenges. Their ancestral lands have been encroached upon by mining companies, logging operations, and large-scale development projects. Discrimination persists, with many Aeta children facing bullying in schools and adults facing limited opportunities for employment. Their languages are endangered, and their communities often lack access to basic healthcare and education. Yet, they continue to resist erasure. Across the archipelago, Aeta leaders are organizing to reclaim their rights, revive their traditions, and tell their stories. They are asserting their identity not as relics of the past, but as vital participants in the future of the Philippines. As the country grapples with questions of decolonization, indigenous rights, and historical truth, the Aeta stand as a powerful reminder of the Philippines' Black origins. The Aeta are not simply a footnote in the history of the Philippines. They are its foundation. Their story reveals that the first Filipinos were Black, and that the roots of Filipino identity lie not in Spanish churches or American classrooms, but in the forests and mountains where the Aeta have lived for millennia. To ignore their story is to accept a version of history shaped by colonizers and filtered through the lens of racial prejudice. Reclaiming the history of the Aeta is more than an academic exercise. It is a necessary act of justice, a way to honor the true origins of the Filipino people and to uplift those who have been silenced for far too long. In learning about the Aeta, we learn a broader truth about humanity itself, that our histories are intertwined, that our roots are deeper than borders and skin color, and that the story of the first Filipinos is a Black story, proudly and undeniably so.